Good evening, everyone. Today is January 31st, 2020. There's been a lot of media coverage over the coronavirus outbreak that is taking place in China. There are many people with questions and concerns over the ramifications of this outbreak, not only for China, but also here at home. I wanted to take a moment to provide some food for thought as you analyze this situation for yourself. I've been monitoring this outbreak since early January, when there were around 40 cases. From the initial reports, there were some aspects of the outbreak that worried me, and the series of events following have worried me even further. I know that it is difficult to get straight facts and data with so many different types of coverage as well as misinformation that is out there in the world at the moment. These are the things I believe you need to take into consideration regarding this now global health emergency and public health emergency in the United States. Namely, what is the coronavirus? How is it spread? How serious is it? How is it different from the flu? What are the real world ramifications of this outbreak? And most importantly, what should you do? Let's start. What is the coronavirus? The coronavirus has been around forever. It generally affects animals. It does have the ability to jump species and infect humans on occasion. Scientists believe that this virus came from either bats or snakes in a market in Wuhan, China. But where it came from is not the pressing matter. How we stop the spread of the virus is the most important objective for the entire world. As of now, scientists know this virus has symptoms of the flu: cough, difficulty breathing, fever, with some patients displaying symptoms of diarrhea or headache as well. They estimate that roughly 20% of the people affected will have serious side effects requiring hospitalization. There is no treatment for this illness at the moment, and scientists are rushing to find a vaccine they can implement on a global scale. How is the coronavirus spread? Scientists are unclear on how this virus is spread from person to person, but they have confirmed that it is highly contagious. The dramatic increase over the last week from 1,200 cases to nearly 10,000 indicate this disease is highly infectious. They have also confirmed cases where people have transmitted the virus without showing any symptoms during their 10 to 14 day incubation period. For the public, this is concerning, especially if authorities can't detect the illness without performing a blood test. There are currently 20 airports screening for travelers with fevers, but an asymptomatic individual would not be caught, and they would still be able to infect others around them for 10 to 14 days until they get sick themselves. Imagine how many people you come in contact with in a 10 to 14 day time span. This gives the virus the ability to spread in an unprecedented manner, which we're seeing now in China. How serious is it? As of right now, most official sources are downplaying the seriousness of this epidemic. Many people are also saying that Americans have to worry more about the flu than this coronavirus. At the current moment, they're correct. There are only 6 cases in the United States, now 7 today, but I expect more to be confirmed in the coming days and weeks. You may believe that you have nothing to worry about at the moment, and I'm not trying to be an alarmist. I am simply trying to relay the facts as I see them. So when it comes to the question of how serious is this illness, I need to ask you some questions. If this disease wasn't serious, why did China quarantine over 60 million people? These individuals are stuck in their houses, unable to leave for fear of catching and spreading this nasty disease. If this disease wasn't serious, why would numerous countries close their borders to China, not allowing anyone in or out? If this disease wasn't serious, why would so many different organizations be rushing to find a vaccine to help stop the spread of the infection? If this disease wasn't serious, why would a cruise liner lock down nearly 7,000 people because 2 people are possibly showing symptoms of infection? In my opinion, based on the research I have conducted over the last 3 weeks and seen the reaction from governments and organizations across the world, this is a very serious disease that needs to be taken very seriously. Coronavirus versus the flu. I've seen many different articles from across the country trying to calm people down and rationalize why they should not be concerned about this coronavirus abroad. Generally, the headline will read, "You should be worried about this disease instead of the coronavirus." They're talking about influenza. So far this year, there have been 15 million cases of influenza across the country. The United States has had 8,000 people die from the flu. What that means is the standard flu has a mortality rate of 0.05%. So yes, flu has killed more individuals than this new coronavirus. That does not mean that the flu is not deadlier than this virus. Scientists still do not know what the mortality rate for this new virus is, but they're estimating it's anywhere from 2 to 3%. Put that into perspective, if this coronavirus infected 15 million people, it would kill anywhere from 300 to 450,000 individuals. This is a drastically higher number than the 8,000 people who have already died from influenza in the United States. What makes this virus similar to influenza is the fact that it can be transmitted asymptomatically. This is why the flu still exists. There's no way to isolate the virus and let it burn out. What is concerning to me about this new virus in China is the ramifications of humanity not being able to control and stop the spread. From 1917 to 1920, Spanish influenza infected over 500 million people. It traveled around the world once, mutated, killed a bunch of people, and then went around the world again, killing more people. Spanish influenza killed an estimated 3 to 6% of the total world population by 1920. The current world population is over 7.5 billion people. Depending on how deadly this disease is, if it's not controlled, it could end up killing tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of individuals. I believe this is why all of the world governments are taking this epidemic as seriously as they are. What are the real world ramifications? Now that you understand the basics to this virus, let me propose a scenario. Imagine you and your family had to isolate yourself in your home for 2 months. You weren't allowed to interact with anybody. You needed to survive on your own. Vehicles aren't allowed, there's no travel, except maybe police, medical, and government officials. You need to walk to the store to get supplies, food, water, anything. Now here's the dilemma. If you leave your house, you could come in contact with somebody who is seemingly healthy, but infected with the coronavirus. They could then unknowingly infect you with this virus, and you would bring it home. You would then, more than likely, infect your family with this disease before you even started showing any symptoms. This scenario is the current situation for over 60 million people in China. If the authorities don't have the ability to control the spread of this disease, it can make its way across the United States. If that happens, we may just find ourselves in a scenario where we need to stay home for an extended period of time in order to eradicate the disease. What should you do? What should I do? It's the question many people are asking themselves right now. My recommendation for you is to start stocking up on non-perishable food and water that can last you and your family for a minimum of 2 months. At the rate the virus is progressing, it's better to be safe than sorry. I would also recommend you go to the hardware store and purchase some masks, specifically N95 respirator masks. Surgical masks will not be good enough to prevent the spread of this disease. They don't actually filter air. Nurses use N95 masks specifically for infectious diseases, so you should too. Between you and me, it makes sense to buy as much food as you can and not worry so much about the masks. I would only buy about 10 or 20. And why? Well, because if you have a home full of food and water, then you won't be put in the position of needing to expose yourself to the public unless there's an emergency. So the masks are a preventative measure, and that's great, but they're not 100%. But if you are without food, then you're forced to expose yourself unnecessarily, in which case you would need a mask. So if you have the food, you don't have to worry about going out and getting food. Final thoughts. As I said, I'm not trying to be an alarmist. I'm not trying to start mass hysteria. I would recommend you don't rush out to the grocery store and completely stock up all in one trip either. That'll cause panic and you won't be able to get as much food if that happens. Do research on this virus yourself to determine how serious you feel about this outbreak. Just be sure to read between the lines when you do. For the last 2 weeks, I've made multiple trips to the grocery store and purchased high carbohydrate, non-perishable food in case me and my family need to go into isolation. I think this is a potentially serious situation, with isolation seemingly being the only solution. So that's why China is nearly completely quarantined. Don't count on the government to solve this issue for you. You need to ensure the safety and welfare of you and your family above all else. I hope this helped.